Okay, hopefully I can fix that. All right. We ready to go now? Fantastic. Welcome everyone to What Stock to Buy Now with me, Gordon Scott, CMT. I'm gonna tell you right up. The stock is RKT. I'm going to explain why I think that, what's happening in the markets, and why 60 minutes from now, the stock that you might consider buying is RKT. I've got a couple other ideas, three other ideas, in fact, that you might find very interesting and might like better than RKT, but we'll go through each one of them. Before we do, I need to just remind you, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. What I'm explaining tonight is, right now, is not financial advice specifically for your account, but it is something that you want to add to your own due diligence, which you must and should do for every trade that you make, understanding your own risk tolerance, trade at your own risk. I or Actions to Wealth are not responsible for any losses you might make, and you could lose money on these things. But if you're like me and you like trading ideas, then hang around for the next hour because I've got several. But let's jump right into a chart of RKT, and I'm going to share my screen so we can look at that. Let me get that up. There we go. And let me do the share, which is where there. No, not there. Sorry about that. Give me a second. Coming up. One share. There we go. All right. Hopefully you can see now this chart that I have of Rocket Companies. It's Rocket Mortgage is what it is. And if you don't know what Rocket Mortgage is, they have these kind of fun commercials. You can just check them out on YouTube. Just search on Rocket Mortgage commercial, and that's kind of cute. They, I believe, came from, or actually are part of Intuit company, which is the company that did TurboTax. Interestingly enough, Quicken Software, TurboTax, and Quicken Loans. All of these were part of the same company, Intuit, and then I think Rocket Mortgage spun off. And so I actually did a loan through Quicken Loans years ago, and did a real estate loan. Really nice. I ended up making good money on that real estate transaction. But what we're looking at right now is a really interesting thing. They just passed earnings on Thursday, and then this was the reaction on Friday. And notice the volume was up. So earnings was good news, and yet the market was not anticipating that, right? Isn't that interesting? So part of what happened on Friday is not only did this company have good news, but interest rates, the 10-year note, which is often connected with mortgages and particularly refinancing mortgages, fell. It didn't fall drastically. It just kind of fell a little bit, which is kind of interesting. Now, with all this inflation talk, see, everybody keeps thinking, oh man, things are going to get more and more expensive, and interest rates are going to have to come up in order for investors to want to outpace the gains that inflation is making. And just like stock prices go up at that same time, because inflation going up means dollar coming down to make it more attractive for people to come in, et cetera, et cetera. That's the typical thought, is that interest rates will end up increasing in order to combat inflation, either organically or by government fiscal policy or Fed monetary policy or whatever, right? So that's always the thought. But what recently happened is interest rates took a tick down. In fact, why don't I just go ahead and jump over to that TNX? See that we're ticking down over the past month. Then it started to come up. It's like, okay, here it comes, inflation, blah blah blah. No, the markets are healthy. Weird as that may seem, because of all of the insane stuff that seems to be going on all around the world, financially speaking. The markets are behaving as if they're healthy. And what I mean by healthy is you have people making decisions with just, they've got to make their own risk decisions, and they're doing it the best they can, and they're free to do it. So markets are not irreparably constrained, at least, US markets don't appear to be, and many of the global currency markets do not appear to be. And so when people are free to make their own decisions, the price action becomes mildly predictive. I say mildly because nothing is, perfectly predictive, but you get this general sense of prices moving in a certain way that is a prediction, the collective prediction of people's ideas. Here's what we think is going to be happening. Right now, the markets are saying we don't think that inflation is going to be this runaway stuff. Now, on simple things like, I mean, consumer goods, food, consumables, toiletries, shaving, whatever, that kind of stuff. There might be creeping inflation going along there, but the markets seem to be saying that generally speaking, that inflation's not going to get out of hand, because it's true that everything else is going up in price, but wages are also coming up in the United States. And I don't know about the rest of the world, but in weird ways, I think they are, even around the rest of the world. And so it's like, yeah, inflation's there, but people's earning power is there. And so they're not really losing ground. I mean, that's that's what I would guesstimate from this whole thing. So anyway, with interest rates kind of moving down, that means houses, even though they're much more expensive than they were, are still generally going to remain in the affordable range. That is, with people's increased wages, with these low interest rates, with people's ability to find opportunity and to pay, with smaller houses, with condos, with whatever, there are still people that want mortgages. And the TNX dropping like that means that they're going to remain more affordable. And if they're going to remain more affordable, then surprise, surprise, a company like Rocket Mortgage is going to be able to take advantage. Given that they already did so well with their earnings report, so they were estimated to do 48 cents a share. They came in at 46 cents a share, and yet the market still pushed them up. That is I mean, I didn't listen to the earnings call. My guess would be that they had guidance like, going forward, we're going to be doing well, right? Let's have a quick look at the news for them, and we'll see. Following Q2 earnings price target hikes from analysts. Yeah, so analysts feel like this is really good. Class action lawsuit, yeah, that's because it dropped so heavily. And there's always these ambulance chasers, so to speak, people that come out and like, oh, you're mad because you lost money on RKT? Well, we can get it back for you. Anyway, no, Raj. Shares were up 11% after its performance led to some price target increases. Morgan Stanley increased the target to 19, Piper Sandler to 20, RBC lowered from 20 to 24, from 26, still well above. Yeah, so there's not a lot of news there, but the price hikes. So I don't feel like it's going to take off and be this huge runaway thing. But my guess is we're probably going to see it creep up north of 20. And today you probably can pick that up a little bit of a bargain down here around 19, 18 or 19. That would be my guess. So I like the idea of trying to pick up RKT. It is a gap trade, crossing the 10-day moving average on a downward trend, potentially creating a new upward trend. Gap opened higher and closed higher tall green bar. So it's got gap, it's got tall range, all of my strategies, post earnings, high volume, everything looks great about it. And plus, with the market starting downward today, you might get the ability to pick it up on a bargain, set the stop loss here, take profit up in there, or let it run if it will continue to go. I also think that there's a really good chance for it, even if it dips today, to get sort of a boost, because two stocks that are likely to be influential to it are reporting earnings on Tuesday, the 17th of August. So this is Home Depot and this is Lowe's. Home Depot looks great, Lowe's less so, but whatever one does, the other is going to do. In other words, if Home Depot reports good earnings, Lowe's is likely to report better earnings. If Home Depot is going to report terrible earnings, then Lowe's is probably going to do less terrible, or maybe even mediocre earnings. Now, it's true, these could come out and really move things down. No perfect prediction, but I sense that things are going to go better for these companies than the market expects, certainly than the market expects of Lowe's, right? I'm thinking that the Lowe's might be up in there, but that's not today, that's tomorrow, and then days following. My point is, I think both of these companies are going to turn in good earnings, and so that we're going to see a dip here on both of these. And as these rise up, I think that's going to roll over and be some news that RKT investors are going to be interested in. And so I think throughout the week, there's a real possibility of something interesting. So Helen says, financially and otherwise, yes, craziness. You're right. Absolutely. I see a gap, but bullish engulfing. No. Did I say that? I apologize if I said bullish engulfing. That's not. I mean, bullish engulfing kind of to back here, maybe. Yeah. No. But it is tall range, jumping up over the 10-day moving average, etc. So it's got all of the things in the right place. Now I'm talking about it dipping back today. Why is that? Well, let's look really quick. Here's the 5-minute over the weekend chart from the NASDAQ futures. Weekend starts, Friday closes there, weekend starts there, and we've drifted lower, right? Look at the Aussie yen, the global equivalent of risk for this. This looks terrible. It was on a slight downward trend in Friday, opened, tried to rally, failed, and just down. And it looks like it's breaking through support and pushing lower. Meanwhile, as I mentioned already, the NASDAQ is kind of dropping. So the NASDAQ at the beginning, it drifted a little lower, but was kind of trying to hang in there, and now it's dropping. So you see this big drop here, and it's back down on support, and the Aussie yen made a similar kind of drop, but it has broken through support. So I feel like the Aussie yen is actually leading the NASDAQ lower. And so the bad news about that is it may not be an up day in US markets. They might open and drop lower. The good news is that means you can be participating in a buy the dip strategy. And the idea number 2 is Apple. Why Apple? I mean, well, first off, Apple's really not that expensive on a per share basis. Yeah, I know it's this huge company. Apple is around 149 right now. Yeah, I'm gonna put this back, but I just wanted to show you the price of Apple. Let me go back to percent. The comparison here is that is the QQQ, NASDAQ 100. So you see, Apple was kind of lagging the QQQ for the longest time. QQQ has been trending steadily up, sort of tapered off. Apple got up ahead of it and keeps hitting up against resistance, but making this higher low as it goes, and so that it's turning up. the point where it's pushing up against resistance. Now, we could see how once we've gotten to this price, Apple sold off, probably ready to sell off again. I like the idea of anything at this price point or lower, buying in and giving it a wide berth all the way down to here, and then getting ready to take profit up there. Keeping that far enough away that what's going to happen, hopefully, is this thing goes up, and if it closes on its high, but not all the way up there, then just take that away, or maybe better yet, just sort of have that as a mental stop. That's at about 152 and a half, 152, somewhere in there, depending on where you buy this. If you're $4 down, you want to be, $2 up. If you get to buy that clear down at 148, lower than the blue line, then terrific. You can be taking profit just at 150, even right there at the top, if you're doing the sort of quick hit strategy, right? But I think that this thing, I don't think you should have a stop loss at 150. I think you should let it go, because it could break open and keep going. Why do I say that? Well, because that's what Microsoft did. See, and Microsoft and Apple, the two of them together, you've heard me say it before, highly influential to the NASDAQ. Whatever they do, the NASDAQ is going to do. Both of them, Apple's pushing against the high, Microsoft has already broken through. Microsoft, the largest capitalized company publicly traded in the world, it is breaking out and making new highs. Either Microsoft has to come crashing back down to earth as all indexes turn and go lower, or it is leading the markets higher. Now, it could easily turn around right here. However, it's just there's so much money that has to go into Microsoft in order for it to move up the way it is. And when it does, mathematically, it helps the indexes do what they're going to do. Meanwhile, where would that money come from? I'm going to leave it to connect the dots. Leave it to you to connect the dots. But Moderna is, that looks like a big topping out to me. If you're the kind of person that knows how and can short stocks in the U.S., there's a short for you. I know that's kind of crazy, because what? Short a flying rocket? Yeah, it has hit its apogee. I don't know how much lower it's going to go. At some point, it'll dip and kind of hang around. I kind of think the party's over for Moderna, though. And this thing, it's like this huge blow off top and then coming back. Well, a little deceptive. Best to look at it in a logarithmic chart, and you see it looks not quite as bad as all that. But even on logarithmic, look at the size of these candles. See, all of these candles, when you're looking at a logarithmic chart, are the same as a percentage basis of the stock. There has been nothing like the most recent move. And what was that? Delta variant, right? Delta variant. And what did we say about Delta variant? I don't know if you heard it over the weekend, but I said the market is acting like it is not afraid of the Delta variant for whatever reason. Lots of public policy, lots of statements, lots of people actually concerned. I've got people all around me, is they're saying, look at all these people catching COVID, and it's not just numbers. It's like people they know, right? They're getting diagnosed, they're feeling very sick, and they're just so the COVID scare is back. But what's interesting to me is like a lot fewer people are dying, and there weren't a lot of people dying from COVID. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be offensive to anybody, but check the stats. They're just this is a low lethality disease, and the Delta variant is less than half of the lethality of what COVID was before. And so I feel like the markets are saying no, it's not going to be a big deal. And I could be wrong, the markets could be wrong. All I'm saying is this is what the price is doing, and as a result of that, I think that this scare created that blow off top, and I feel like the party's over. As for why that's related to Microsoft, like I said, I'm gonna have to leave it to you to connect the dots. Yeah, Helen, I've been reading possible third booster shot. Well, of course. Um, no, I can't say it. I can't even say why that is an of course. But yeah, we're gonna move on from that. So anyway, let's see here. What's going on? Oh, that's no, I don't want to leave that chart there. I want to change it back to Apple. If Microsoft is going higher, see, that's the thing. If Microsoft is going higher, then there's very little room for Apple to go lower. Um, and Microsoft is really moving high. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that um, Microsoft has become the world's largest company by market capitalization? And they did so, generally speaking, because of the success of the operating system, Windows. And I don't know if you remember, but Windows had a particular way, and it wasn't just Windows. This is a pattern for all Microsoft products, and continues to be to a lesser extent, but it's still there. But Windows and Microsoft pioneered um, the business practice, shall we say, of selling betaware. And that's a little harsh, but early on when they did it, that's what it was, right? Pre stuff that shouldn't have gone out because it wasn't fully debugged to the level that major software suppliers had made it uh, expected, right? All these companies way back in the day, um, uh, you know, Lotus. I'm dating myself way back when, right? Uh, DBase. I'm trying to remember the companies that were all doing this back then. But you know, early on in the software, like we're talking the 90s, you know, the practice was test, 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 screen out the bugs, and you can't release it until it is so bug free that just a tiny percentage. Well, the stuff that Microsoft started putting out was not that bug free. And then they actually put out major updates, releases that would improve it shortly after they got it out. Well, they went and perfected that marketing strategy with Windows. Windows 95 was in such high demand. People just wanted to have a nice looking, quick running graphical user interface on the computer because they didn't want to pay as much as you had to pay for the Macintosh back in those days. It was a good 30 or 40% higher to buy an Apple computer. And some people, they had to have an Apple computer because that was their biz. That was they were in publishing or whatever. But most people weren't, and they didn't want to pay the extra money for the Mac, and they didn't know Mac user interface as well. And they did know Windows, but Windows was still kind of slow. And 95 came out, it was faster, but it was oh so buggy. And yet Microsoft, win because you buy it and then you buy these updates. And now the updates are all online and you get it. It's just natural. It's service updates, whatever. I mean, Microsoft perfected the idea of putting out a product that doesn't exactly work well, but needs updates. All right. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Yes. Yes, Helen, you got me. You're with me. All right. So, but Microsoft has done it. They've been successful at it. Right. So, and the guys that are at the top of that, or were at the top of that, where are they now? Well, anyway, back to Apple. Apple has got some really good stuff going on, but there are so many funds in Apple, so many ETFs, hedge funds, mutual funds, so much of the world is invested in Apple in one way or another that when you get a big run like this on Apple, you got 124 to 150 basically, you know, that's time for some profit taking. Well, that's what's been going on. The question is that enough profit taking? Are we done? We ready to head higher? Higher lows, I think, means yes. And given Microsoft taking off, I think Apple's following it on the way up. All right. Now then, I mentioned Lowe's and Home Depot back on RKT. Also, XHB and XLRE. This is the Home Builders ETF, which includes Home Depot and a few other companies, and you know, home seller companies like Toll Brothers, construction companies. And this is a good proxy for residential home demand and all the things that come with it, stuff like you buy at Home Depot when you buy a new home. XLRE is the commercial real estate, and they're both heading higher. And so, you know, they the fact that these guys are both going higher means that there's more demand for real estate, means that Home Depot and Lowe's are probably going to do well, means that RKT probably has a good setup. Well, that being said, you know, we're still looking at this, you know, NASDAQ with a little bit of downward pressure. That's why I say I think you can pick it up lower and catch a good run. Is it going to come screaming way up like this? I doubt it, but I do think it's going to make for a nice trade. So the trade setup is, you know, probably being able to pick it up around 19 or lower. And actually, that's my target price color. So I gotta change that to blue for entry price. Okay, that's the entry price. The green's the target. Oops. Entry down here around 19 or lower. I think you're going to be able to get that. And then we're going to put the stop clear down here. Well, we actually don't have to go that far. We can go right about there, I think. Yeah, we'll go there. 1750. That's the stop. 1750 or below, and you're in 19. So it's about $1.50. So wherever you buy, go $1.50 lower, right? And then take profit at 75 cents or higher, right? I feel like you could probably do better than 75 cents, but the risk to make one strategy, which gives you usually around a 70% probability of gain, is always my default setup. So that's a little tight. If you put it at 20, then you'll have room for, like, if it comes up and you feel like, hey, it's going to trend, it's going to keep going, we're going to go back and challenge that high, we're going to go get RBC's price target at 24, and you want to just sit back for a couple, 3-4 weeks and let that happen, great, you can do that. If you want to just make money this week, I'm thinking you buy there and then just take the profits at about 75 cents a share higher. That's the RKT setup. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Helen. I'm glad you like that analysis. Okie dokie. So, two other ideas, though. This Hut 8 Mining Corporation. Let's go look at the news. So they just came out with earnings. See, I love it when a stock does this. Big run up into earnings. I mean, of course, you love it when you're here, right? $4, and now it's, you know. But what happened is everybody was anticipating good earnings. The earnings came out, and the estimate was 03 cents, negative 13. Wow, that looks terrible. And then yet, what happens is it drops down, and people buy and get sold, right? So it's like everybody's expecting great news. It turns out there's bad news, but the reaction is, oh, keep buying. Really? Okay. That's they had so the earnings were bad, but the revenue was outrageously good. So that's what this is. Quarterly revenue 35 compared to 9.2 million. Okay, so it's like way over. Was that expectations, or was that compared to last quarter? So they just did a lot more business. They don't quite have all their processes worked out. They don't have their debt structure properly, whatever it is, because they're still losing money. Maybe they had to take a charge. The big thing is that, generally speaking, there are a lot of people that feel like, hey, this don't get freaked out by that per share loss number. That's who's selling. People that got in there and they want to take their profits. And yet, what's happening today? Well, in the pre-market, HUT is up. And let me refresh this page if I can, if it'll stay here. See what HUT's. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's gone down a little bit. It's at 686 though. So check out where that puts the chart. 686, right about there. Do you see what that means? So in the pre-market, this stock's going to open up somewhere in there. In other words, it's and it opened here and sold off. Maybe it's going to do that again. Okay, I get that. Maybe it's going to do that again. My thing is, the earnings news came out and people sold down to there. Buyers opened it up and then it got sold down to there. But even after 2 days of being sold down, buyers are right here waiting to jump in and buy it. Well, maybe you don't jump in first thing, but because who knows, maybe it'll sell down just like this. There's some still sellers there, but buying in, I think, is really a good idea because it's blue sky after that. Their revenue is 4 times what it was. It just, wow, this could be a company that's really going to attract a lot of investors, and there are already a lot of investors that are attracted. When the sellers get out of the way, that price could really take off. So I think that's a pretty good idea. I like Rocket the best because I feel like it's got all this other stuff. This has got a lot of stuff going, but it's all just contained inside here, and it's a mining stock, and gold and silver just aren't doing all that well. So I don't think it's the best of the 3 ideas. The other idea, well, actually 4 ideas, because Apple is an idea all by itself. The other idea here is ENLV. And ENLV is interesting for also what it's doing in the pre-market. ENLV is up rather strongly. The price is at 1196. So check out where that is. 1196. Yeah, way up here, right? Old highs, previous highs, and that's where it's opening. So with the market coming down, good chance you could kind of buy in as it tries to fill the gap, and maybe if it takes off. Now, if this thing just opens at 1196 and takes off, it might be the kind of thing you have to chase. I don't like to do that myself. I don't like to try to jump on a moving freight train, but some people do. And there was a trade a while back we were looking at here, and it was one of those things where you jump on and it goes really high that day. I don't know that this is going to do it because it's already kind of done it for quite a bit, but it is interesting. Let's see, HUT was it, and ENLV. I've got to bring on the volume. One of these I had been looking at the volume and it had an interesting pattern. Oh, okay, maybe this one. When you're dealing with low price stocks, there's a particular volume pattern that's important to watch out for. And that is this right here. For example, when you see this jump and then you see a flag pattern coming back down, see how that sort of trickles back down to earth, right? And this is sort of its average level. This thing jumps and then it comes back down to the average level. And then it jumps again. Well, that's earnings, right? So earnings take off. Look at what's happened since earnings, though. It just keeps going on high volume. That high volume, yeah, we've had a couple low days, but even those low days are higher than the average by almost double. So when you see a situation where price runs up and then pulls back, but the volume is still there, oftentimes that is a really good opportunity because it'll consolidate a little while and then it'll take off again. That's a pattern that I look for. It doesn't always do that. Stocks don't always do that, but particularly low price stocks. Basically, what happens is people get interested, and if they sort of stay interested, then there's big potential. So here's another one, the one we'd already looked at, HUT, low, 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 low. It jumps up, comes way back down, new low even, but check out that volume. And that volume, especially right here, as we're down at this low, see that big chunk of high level volume? That spells opportunity. Do we know that it's going to do this? No, we don't. But this is what happens. See how there's so much more volume than there was. That means a lot of people are hanging around looking. And when those people decide to act here, whether it's people or large institutions, then what do? They really make it move fast. Now, this comes back down again, but where's the volume? Still staying high. We're not trickling back to that tiny little level like we were on the other one. Instead, these everybody's hanging around. So when the buyers come back in, the stock moves fast, right? Here come the buyers back in, boom, stock moves fast. And what's going on now? That volume is at even brand new higher levels. So yet again, another reason that HUT is making my top 3. And ENLV is not quite as strong as HUT on volume, but it's there, right? See how that average volume is still kind of there. Don't know if today it's going to have another red candle, or it's just going to take off and go. The fact that it's right up against resistance right there means that if it even starts going a little bit higher, we could see a big move past that. So those are some really interesting stock plays that don't have a lot of fundamental driver behind them. Let's just give you the news on ENLV. I haven't even looked at it. Let's see what it is. Israeli Minister of Health authorized initiation of phase 2B clinical trial in severe COVID-19 patients. All right, so this is a COVID thing. But it's severe COVID. That's good. That's because this doesn't matter specifically about the Delta variant. Although, I mean, because as I've mentioned, people aren't really all that concerned about the Delta being long lasting and a serious threat to economic society. Okay, so that's what ENLV is all about, and it's jumping up pre-market today. All right, if you have stocks that you're looking at and you'd like me to look at them and give you my read on them and do what I do, I'd be happy to go through them. So we've got about 20 minutes left. During that 20 minutes time, if you're out there searching charts while you listen to me blab on, then go ahead, text them in, share with the group, see what you got that could be of interest to other people. If you don't, no worries. You got time to go out and get some. But I've actually got another idea that you might want to consider. Let's go back and look at the NASDAQ and the Aussie yen. All right. See, the Aussie yen to me is of significant concern because we've gone down, we've broken the low, and it's kind of holding here. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't it be? All currencies would be kind of holding because the U.S. market open is approaching. But the fact that it's just in the past hour done this, just drifted steadily lower. And while the NASDAQ, or while the Aussie yen was drifting steadily lower, the NASDAQ was fighting at it. But just here in the last 10 minutes, what's it done, right? It's made that lower high. We'll see where this 5-minute candle takes us. But, as we're coming in, I kind of expect it to just sort of stay inside this range. I'm very concerned. Well, we've been breaking a new low. So I'm very concerned that what we're going to see is after the market opens, we're going to challenge both of these lows and break through them. And so I feel like it's a down opener to start. So far in this market, every down move, every dip has been met by buyers at some point. If you believe, hey, this is the top, we are done, this is the day of reckoning, we're going down from here. I mean, it could be Delta variant situation. I don't know. Could be that, but I'm not convinced. But let's say you were convinced. What would you do? Well, the answer is easy. The answer is which stock? We'll go to this chart. SQQQ. Short the Nasdaq 100, right? If the Nasdaq 100 falls, then this thing takes off and goes up. No, it's not going to go back up to its old highs. It doesn't work like that. If the Nasdaq drops 1%, this goes up 3%. And I mean, 3% is pretty good. If the Nasdaq drops 10% over a few days, this can go up 30%. But 30% from $8, what are we talking about? 250, 275. So, it could get up to up in this area. Like, so if the Nasdaq had a big 10% drop, that would be ugly, and this thing would rocket up that high. But that's all. That's, you're not going to see this thing go way up to there. The markets would have to drop by 50%. Like, well, wait a minute, why if it dropped about that's the nature of these inverse ETFs. It's like options, they have time decay, right? So anyway, SQQQ. The other one is TZA. This is the Russell 2000. It's already been sideways and ready to go down. If NASDAQ goes down, Russell 2000 is going down. If that's going down, this is going up. And its scaling is a little different. And so it could actually head back up or head up into this area. But as you can see, that's not 30% rise. So anyway, those are, if you're playing the downside, that's one. Helen's asking, wonder if the Afghan news affects the US dollar. What do you think? Military stock affected, S&P down. Don't know how to read US 30, the Dow. Yeah, the Dow. So, all right, let me answer. You're not asking a question, but I'm going to ask the question you're not answering. DIA is the stock ticker to look at. That's the Dow. And if you're looking for, I mean, that's where it was before. And so if you went and found a quote for DAA, if you were looking on these charts, we'll go here. Trading view charts, and you're looking for the Dow or the S&P, you go to futures. And sorry, I got my Zoom menu in the way there. Okay. YM is the Dow. So that's what the Dow Jones Industrial Average futures are doing. Compared to the weekend, they are down. But they've been kind of flat through here. So, right, when people get afraid, they head to the Dow. So, yeah, it's not going up, but it's kind of holding. That's consistent with the sort of fear behavior. The S&P is ES. That's those futures. And what are they doing? As you can see, they're a little lower than the Dow, but they're not quite as bad as the NASDAQ, right? Because they have both defensive stocks in there and so forth. So good call, Helen, talking about the Afghan news, the figure or the news that the U.S. Embassy has been taken over by the Taliban in Afghanistan. That's interesting. That's kind of rough sounding, and markets, may be reacting to that. I kind of think that's news that the markets are going to get over because the U.S. kind of wanted to pull out of Afghanistan anyway, right? Yeah, really scary too for that theater of or for that region. Yeah, it is, and not Anybody here read The Kite Runner, the book? Yeah, so it's a fictional story, but the author, grew up in Coverville, and I felt like that book, he adequately and accurately described um, the um, the behavior of the Taliban. The spirit of that is um, uh, I say inappropriate sounds trite and so forth. It just is like, they're a gang. They're a gang of thugs, and what they're doing is um, amazingly self-centered and destructive and terrible for any society. Even if you think that somehow they're being misreported and propagandized against. Um, but yeah, you're right, Helen. So yeah, US and NATO pulling out creates a power vacuum. Um, Weirdly, it sounds like it should, but I kind of feel like, nah, I'm just not going to go in there. I'm not enough of a, but you're right, Helen, to say that, that could be affecting stocks. So if that were true, that it were affecting stocks, then we would want to look at defense companies and see, are these companies going up? Well, the first one doesn't, you don't think of Boeing as a defense company. You think of it as an airline manufacturer, but it is definitely uh, I mean, it moves with the defense play situation. And so where are we? We don't have pre-market here on Boeing. I'd have to bring up different charts to get the pre-market. Well, actually, I could probably bring up the order panel. And if we just connect even to paper trading, we should get some. Yeah. Oh, speaking of that, there's my Microsoft position. The Ford, that was my idea a couple of weeks ago. I'm still holding on to that. It hasn't hit the stop. I think that'll come back around, but that's been a disappointment, no doubt. Um, so I'm not going to put on my idea for RKT here right now because I don't want to have it be. And well, you know what? I could. We'll put it on a different way. Meanwhile, let me stay with what I'm at. Where is Boeing? 232 and a half by 238 and a quarter, so to speak. And it closed at 234. So it's opening lower. Boeing is opening lower, right? And how about Lockheed Martin? LMT, also a defense contractor. Open up that order panel. It closed at 357.83, 357 by 362. That one, I mean, who knows? Because it's a $4.30 spread. Hard to say where that one's going to open. But it's not lower, right? So it might be drifting higher. And then the next one, Northrop Grumman. There it is, Northrop Grumman, NOC. Okay. Closed at 363 and it's right in the middle pre-market. So, I don't see this surge in defense stocks. That's what I'm looking for. See, if all of this is driven by, whoa, there's going to be military action coming on, then I think we would have seen price increases in the pre-market for these, and there would be a surge, coming from this. I'm not seeing it yet. Maybe 5-10 minutes from now, we'll see something different. But yeah, not yet. Any weapons aircraft builder, Lockheed Martin, but they are pulling out more like a drop, you think. So here's what I think is going on. Let me just say this. Gary Trudeau, the guy, Gary, anyway, the guy who wrote the Doonesbury comic, the people with all the snarky look and the long noses and the heavy eyeliner type comic art. Long ago, I don't think it's stopped now, but Doonesbury, right? And he would always do this political stuff. Um, you know, his politics were far too liberal for my taste. Not far too liberal. They were just actually a bit more liberal than I liked. But I always read it because of that. Okay, what's his take? And I felt like he had the best take years and years ago of Afghanistan, and nothing has changed, right? So in those, he would write comic strips about these, off the range defense contractor, freelance arms dealer type dudes who were doing business in or near Afghanistan. And they're kind of showing off their power, but, like, oh, yeah, well, we can just, and then call in basically something, type in some information to somebody somewhere that will all of a sudden created a tactical explosion nearby. And like, haha, see, you can do that. And then the person across the table with them would say, tell me again, why are you losing in Afghanistan? Right. And that question, he used that punchline on more than one occasion. And I thought, that's the right question to be asking. If the US has such tactical prowess, such, resource advantage over anything that the Taliban had, why does the Taliban still exist? If the US wants control and democracy and whatever else in Afghanistan, they have the money and means to basically buy it. And so the fact that they haven't been means that despite what their goals are, there was something else. There was some other goal there. Oh, I have my own conspiracy theories, suggestions, whatever, but it doesn't matter what the actual truth is. The reality is what we're seeing is it a conflict of, oh, there's two forces and they're going to struggle, and for years they've been trying to, but it's the people of Afghanistan, they just don't want it bad enough, and the freedom fighters aren't really fighting for freedom. I don't know what the narrative is. All I know is here's a weird situation that shouldn't exist but perpetuates existing. And so in my mind, it's like, if you're getting something good and you like what you're getting, you don't change what you're getting. If you don't like what you're getting something bad, then you make a change and you get something different. Well, what's been going on with first Russia? Russia was there for quite a while, and then all of a sudden they left, and then the U.S. stepped in, and the U.S. has been there until now, right? So why has the U.S. been there all that time without really accomplishing much of anything worthwhile that we know about? Whatever it was, it stopped. It wasn't beneficial to the powers that be, who don't want to talk about what they are actually doing there. Um, yeah, okay, 19 years sure makes you wonder, but there is a Russian presence, but they are not pulling out. Russia's there too, but they're not pulling out either, right? Yeah, okay. So whatever reason that these countries are there, isn't to somehow restore peace, democracy, get rid of the Taliban gang elements. That's not what the reason is, because if that were the reason, it would have been done long ago. So the idea that the Taliban's now moving in where the US is moving out, that doesn't really look like a big old power shift to me. That doesn't really look like this, things are changing geopolitically. Well, they are, but not because the US or Russia couldn't exercise more force than they are. It's that it's not as valuable or profitable for them to do that. And I hate to say that, it's really cynical political look, but here's why that matters. Here's why that point of view matters to you. If I'm correct about looking at things this way, then I would suggest that this isn't a big beginning of a World War III global conflict, at least the markets aren't going to see it that way. And it isn't, about to lead to huge chaos and confusion. The difficulties that are going on in that country, that might change, and there's some human casualty and collateral that may happen, and I have no ability to improve on that. I have no ability um, to have an opinion that would have any impact there. I do have the ability to make sure that my investing choices are not hurt by it. And if I have the ability to preserve my own money, then I have the ability to do more good in the world, at least in the way that I think is good. And I believe that I do that. So I'm really interested in making sure that I don't get hit by some weird idea that is um, incorrect. And sometimes people put out headlines that are designed to mislead. And so this is my way. You're just listening to my way of how do I filter through. And so I'm looking at the whole Afghanistan thing and I'm thinking, is that really going to be a major trend that's going to move markets around? If so, then we ought to be seeing significant movement in the futures right now. We're seeing a little movement, not a lot. So maybe it's early stages. We ought to be seeing big movement in defense contracts. We're seeing a tiny little bit of movement, but not all of it in the same direction. So maybe not. I think it's a tempest in a teapot as far as the investing markets are concerned, not to trivialize the human impact that's going on in there. But I don't see that being a big move. If I am wrong, then what you'll see is that these defense companies will charge up today on high volume, and that volume won't go away, and there'll still be a big trend. If that were to happen, I do believe that the U.S. markets would start heading south for a little while, and so we'll see. It could, all of those trends could take place, materialize, and head out today. In which case, then I would be wrong. This is a much bigger deal than I thought. But that's my initial read is 10% teapot. Still 85 other wars to keep stocks up. Military industrial complex. Yeah, you know what you're talking about now. Okay, so meanwhile, we're coming up on inside of 2 minutes before the market opens. I want to get the RKT chart handy and close that. And we will also get, I'm going to double the screen here. So we got RKT on one side, see where it opens. And let's bring up the NASDAQ futures chart so we can watch that right into the close. And we'll make that our 5-minute chart. Actually, we'll go 1 minute. Can we do that? Will it let us? Yeah. So in the past few minutes, NASDAQ futures heading down. And so we'll just watch the fun right here. And we'll see how RKT opens. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to try to put RKT on in paper trading. I'll show you how I do that in anticipation. Last week, we did this and it came down, and RKT, not that, yeah. Okay. So RKT is 1875 by 1932, kind of a wide spread, right? I really don't want to do a market order on this. I definitely want to do a limit order. So I'm going to come and try and get in at, yeah, 19, just above 19 with a limit order. I'm going to go 1902. And if I go there or lower, I'm happy. The stop loss, I want to put in $1.50 lower. 1752 would be great. I wish I wouldn't have to lock that in. Oh, here we go. Look at that. RKT opened right at that level. I'm going to have to hurry and do this. And we'll just say risk 1%. If I had a $200,000 account, I'd be putting in 1,500 shares. I don't know if I'll get filled now that it jumped up like that, but I'm gonna sit on it and wait back at 1902, see where that is. So it's 1890 by 1903. That's the bid ask spread. My guess is if you put in 1902, you'd definitely get it. And the paper trading system acted as though I did actually get that trade on RKT. So good. That's nice, because now we can track it for next week and see how that works out. NASDAQ opening up. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were going to see real time. We're like 10 minutes delayed. Sorry about that on the 1 minute chart. So not as much fun as I was expecting. Like, yeah, watch the fireworks. But this is real time. Let's bring up the QQQ, which is going to be closer to real time. No, it'll be actual real time. There we go. So QQQ has opened up low, but is moving up. Okay, right here, I'm feeling like the whole Afghanistan narrative. I'm not too far off base, because if I were off base, that would just be crater. The fact that people are buying in the second minute, and we'll see what happens. We've got several minutes to go yet, right? There's the third minute, NASDAQ moving up. This is buy the dip behavior. It's business as usual for US stocks, right? And so, yeah, truly just protect yourself, says Helen. Yeah, that's right. And so RKT, we got a lot of room. We'll see where it goes. Right now, it's looking down. I'm not at all worried about that, because remember, this was an attempt to buy the dip. I was, as conservative as I could be, but I'm still okay with that price. And tomorrow is kind of the big day, because earnings for two companies that could lift that stock. So there's that. While we're at it, though, let's run over and look at HUT. Where is HUT? HUT opened a little lower and is coming down, not the big fireworks that the pre-market seemed to suggest. ENLV is coming down on very high volume. Look at that. So much more volume right out the gate than anything this big run up did. But we are right at resistance, so selling it down makes sense. Buying it somewhere in here might be worthwhile. Or you could wait until the selling is done, and when it starts to move up again, go get it. I kind of like the idea of buying into the gap, just because that volume is so huge up the top. You might be saying, Gordon, that's a blow off top. That's people selling. I get that, and I get that it's connected to Moderna and Delta, and there. What did I say about Moderna? That's topping and coming down. Yes. So ENLV might not be, the timing might be past for that. And yet I kind of feel like if it were, that thing would already be tanking back in there. I don't feel like if it were over for ENLV, that it would have even opened up quite so high, right? Because the news is already out about the Delta variant. It's just not as bad as a lot of people have incentives for it to be bad. And what do they make vaccine? I don't think they make a vaccine. I think they make a treatment. They make a treatment for serious patients who are, like having to go on a respirator. This treatment, they make a drug or a treatment that keeps people from having to go on a respirator. So it's kind of a niche thing, but it appears to have some real value. And so I don't know, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on. It might be, like wait a day, wait till tomorrow, see how that works. Yeah. Yeah, doing well. It's their treatment is doing well. That's what the news had said. All right, everybody. I think that we covered a lot of ground. I hope you liked that. I hope that you found that to be educational, and I hope that you get a good trading week ahead. Until we do this again next week, everybody take care and trade well.